I grew up in a very Baha'i family and household. From a very young age, the faith was a big part of my family, and my mum and my dad, they're very, very careful to make sure that I grew up with these boundaries in my life, because they were aware of what happens to people when they don't have these boundaries growing up. My great auntie, my grandma's sister, is Simin Saberi, which is one of the 10 women that were martyred in Shiraz. And so my family was very connected to the faith, and I could always see that. But it was always really hard for me to make my religion my own. I was lucky enough to be brought up in a private school, so I wasn't really exposed to as many as the challenges in society which other people face. And that was all up until I was term 1 in year 9. I changed schools to a public school, which was more in my locality since I just moved houses. This is when the real world was opened up to my eyes, because in my previous school, private schools are very two-dimensional. Your reality is your school only. I moved to the public school, and it's like it was a whole new world. I stepped into it, and it was just like girls and boys are friends, which for some reason at my old school it wasn't a thing. People are drinking from a very young age. People are smoking. People are fighting. It's from a different universe compared to my last school. But luckily at this time I was attending a JY, and thank God that this JY, I had 2 of the best tutors anyone could ever ask for. They took us on service trips. They really built a family with our JY. We really benefited from having them. But unfortunately, when I became the age of 15, 16, that's when this group slowly fell apart, just due to everyone was older than me. So they had moved on. They were studying for exams. They were busy with different relationships, extracurricular activities. I feel like I was very blessed on one hand to have no problems in my life, but on another hand, I was very disadvantaged because I was 14 and my life was an absolute breeze. So my faith could not have been tested within those times in my life yet. I grew up a very, very curious child. Although I knew what was expected of me as a Baha'i, it was really hard to perform those expectations. I think it was just due to the lack of sincere love. I started falling into the traps of popularity, partying. All I cared about was looking cool and being feared. I thought it was really cool to look tough, and I didn't really understand at that point in my life that you don't need to fit in to anyone's eyes besides God's. But I thought I really based my self-value off what everyone else thought of me. So it was really hard for me to put the mask on and pretend that I was this good Baha'i when I had these temptations deep inside of me. I was really struggling to find who was Adyan. Because of this, I would go out, I'd engage in things that were unholy. I'd my friends partying, fighting, drinking, this, that, and none of it really resonated with me. None of it was okay, this is me. This is how I want to live my life. And the more I indulged in it, the more I felt rather than trying to find myself, the more separated I became from myself. So much so that I'd attend Baha'i classes, summer initiative, a big institute camp. I'd attend these camps, and the whole time it'd be so exhausting for me because I'm putting on such a front and such a persona. I'd read prayers, it'd feel like nothing. There'd just be words on a paper for me. So then this is when some of the biggest reflections of my life happened. I felt like my life was a matrix, and I was afraid that I would be stuck in this matrix of just having fun, and I'd never actually grow up. I was stuck. I was really stuck, and I didn't think it was possible to remove myself from these situations. And then I hear about a lot of people, they go to Haifa to serve at the Baha'i World Center. And it always seemed as if they left and they came back different, or they came back spiritually vigorous, they were glowing when they'd come back. My motives to go to the World Center were very insincere, and I could see it from a mile away. My goals for Haifa was start implementing working out regularly, get fit, improve your conversational skills, learn how to not go out. You talk to other people, they're oh, I'm going to go to Haifa, I'm going to read more writings. I wish I could be a better service to the Baha'i community. And I have all these materialistic desires that I was wishing to fulfill in Haifa, which end of the day, this is in God's hands. I'll just fill out the application. Not everyone gets accepted. I knew a lot of people that I thought deserved to go to Haifa a lot more than me, and they applied, and yet they didn't get accepted. My thought process at this point in my life, I was 18, I thought I'll just fill in the application. What are the chances I get accepted? If I get accepted, this is my sign to change the path of my life and take my life more seriously. Within a few weeks, I was accepted. They were already asking for my visa. This is the biggest sign of confirmation in my life. And yet, I continued living the life I was previously living. But then the voice came back. After years of not having the voice, it came back. It was telling me, you're digging the hole deeper. Imagine what you could be contributing to the World Center. The realization of the actual change in my life that I was about to embark upon never actually hit me until the day of my departure in the airport. I had a lot of my close friends and my family there, and it was while we were saying our goodbyes that I looked at them. It was genuinely one of the scariest moments of my life. I looked at them and I realized I'm not going to see my best friends, my two little brothers, my mum and my dad, for the next 18 months. It's forever imprinted in my mind that I'm walking into the terminal and I turn around and just seeing them all crying. In that moment, I realized that everything else in my life doesn't matter. The love for my parents and my family and my loved ones, it surpasses everything else by a mile. And it really put every other aspect in my life into perspective. And I knew that I had to change for them and for my brothers. I had to be a better role model for them. So I get to Haifa. I have all these expectations, all these thoughts. I went into there knowing nothing about it, but it was really shocking for me. I come from not hanging out with Baha'is in my day-to-day life. You're being surrounded by 800-900 new Baha'is you've never met. They're also happy, they're also cheerful. It was just the most overwhelming thing. I used to reflect to my friends and my family. They're like, what am I doing here? I don't fit in. This was a mistake. I don't ever see myself becoming like these people. They seem so overjoyed with something was like possessing them, and they were so happy and loving. They loved everyone. I just arrived there and they're like, I love you, like it's so good to see you. I was like, I don't even know who you guys are. How do you love me yet? Like, we haven't met. So the first few months in Haifa were very difficult for me. Still struggling with the same things I was struggling with in Perth. I didn't have a sense of belonging. Service felt like work, which they make it very clear to you that you should be joyful in offering your service to the World Center. But it just felt like a 9 to 5. I'd go to service, I'd be exhausted. I couldn't talk to people. The conversations were very surface level because I didn't have that extra level in my life. My time at the World Center was only 6 months, but on that first month, I met someone who, before I even arrived at the World Center, my friends there, they'd messaged me, I met your doppelganger. I met this guy, you'll love him when you come here. I get there, I meet this guy, my mind is blown. I've never met someone whose life was so parallel to mine, but there was only one thing that was slightly different in our lifestyles. He had overcome his problems already. And so from the moment I met him, we became best friends. He was serving in Akka, and I was serving in Haifa, yet every minute of every day we'd be messaging, calling. I'd sleep at his house on the weekend, he'd come sleep at mine. He was definitely my mentor in Haifa. He was very big on the history of the faith. Everyone in Haifa knew him as he spent thousands of dollars in the bookshop. He'd be constantly studying these writings, and yet he still had time to have fun. He was one of the funnest people I've ever met in my life, one of the funniest people also. He had this duality, which he was able to combine living a Baha'i life and having fun, but proper fun. And I really admired him for that. And so I'd confide in him, tell me how you do this, tell me what you've learned. What is this book? What's this book about? Tell me about the life of Baha'u'llah, life of the Bab. It was through these stories over the next 4 or 5 months that finally in my last month of service, everything clicked. I didn't realize that I didn't even know what being a Baha'i was. Not only that, I didn't even love the 2 holy manifestations in which I didn't know what loving them meant. I didn't know that loving them was your actions, your thoughts, the way you think, the way you live. So grateful for everything he did for me. And he helped me finally realize that my life has a purpose, and he helped me find my purpose. Through the history of the faith, I was able to light the flame in my heart. It would be an absolute honor to give my life and my love to the faith. Unfortunately, my time at the World Center was cut short due to the current conflict over there, and my family wanted me to return. The House of Justice advised that whoever's family wishes for them to return should go back home. So me and my other friends from Australia, we get on the embassy flights back, and one of our stops on the way back to Perth was in Sydney, and that's where my friend was from that I met. We go back to his community. I was absolutely bewildered. I met all of the youth over there. I was shocked. I was so impressed by their steadfastness, by how knowledgeable they were about the faith, I'd never met Baha'is my age that have actually studied their writings and were like deepened enough to the level which where they could engage in conversations with Muslims and Christians and people of other religions, and it could actually be a conducive conversation rather than just, we believe this, we believe that. I never realized that religion could be taught directly. I thought that was a thing of the past. But then it was brought to my attention that this is something that is very possible and doable for all communities. So I met his friends, obviously being at his house, like he continued enlightening me with his new findings every single day. And I'm so grateful for that. But then finally my time in Sydney was over, and I realized that everything I've learned in Sydney especially, my community back home could really benefit from this. I finally arrived back in my community, spiritually on fire. I had all this motivation, all these goals I'd set for our community. I've come back, and one thing in my community before, I feel like there was a real lack of knowledge on the history of the faith. And I think due to that, there was a lack of actually understanding the faith, and the love that it's necessary for Baha'is to have for the faith was missing. So I came back, and I've just been studying for months about all this new material. I'm like about to explode with all of this teachings I've learned. I'm so excited. I'm so happy that I have it. I have to tell everyone. Every Monday night we have team meetings. It started very small. I'd come to team meeting. I start telling everyone everything I've learned over the past week. Every single week, slowly, members of our team got interested. They'd message me privately in front of the group. What should I read? Hey man, what's this? Can you explain this for me? Slowly, it was contagious. One person started deepening, then the next, then the next. I feel like everyone needed their curiosity to be heightened, because I feel like the biggest step forward in the faith is realizing how clueless you actually are, how little you know, and abandoning all these materialistic, good and bad things, putting everything aside and just being ready to access knowledge. That's when like your whole world changes. People slowly became active agents of their own investigation. And that was revolutionary for our community. Like we started after, I'd say almost a year or so of stagnancy, no expanding, no book studies, no ruhis, or the occasional ruhi class. We have a some answer question study. We have a Kitab-e-Iran study. We have done more expansion activities this year than we have in the past 2 years. Even the other members of the youth, at Feast, people are noticing that our community is more vibrant now. The love that was not there before has suddenly appeared as if out of nowhere. We feel more like a family. Like I think of everyone in our community as a family. Like I love them. They're my closest friends in my life right now. It's been honestly a blessing to see some of the youth change, and it's so like, it warms my heart to see them. Everyone is constantly on their own journey to find themselves, and this journey is often riddled with test and hardship. I've found by being able to express my own story and the struggles that I've been through in my life, I'm able to help others feel less alone and by themselves. I was able to finally transform my shame into something positive for society.